What's the difference between this $2 starter knife that Nick made 11 years ago versus a beautiful handcrafted $500 knife that Nick now sells? Today I'm standing here with Nick Huff, and we're gonna find out the whole process from start to finish. Let's find out. All right, man, walk us through the process.
Well, you know, obviously I do a lot of custom knives, and those are all done one off, one at a time. I do each one, I shape each one, grind each one, drill every hole, all that process, do my own heat treatment, all of that. One of the other things I do is I do production knives, and that is one of my designs, but it's batch cut, water jet, and then batch heat treated. So when I get them, I get a whole stack of them at a time.
Okay.
Usually I get a box of them. It's hard for my kid to even pick them up. It's so heavy.
All right. So you order these. These are the kind of the raw material you start with?
Yep. I send the guy big sheets of steel, and he water jets them, so they're all exactly the same, and they're heat treated as well.
Right.
Well, the last time I ordered a batch, 2 pieces of steel that were 48 inches by 16.5 inches, and he cut me 150 blades, 77 blades per sheet, so about 150 blades. The steel was $700. The water jetting was $1,200. The heat treatment was $700. It includes all the shipping and everything.
It's not a cheap hobby, is it?
No, not at all. These are water jetted, and they start out, they have a little nipple, and I'm going to grind bevels on this guy. So what we'll do is go over to the grinder and get this guy prepped and ready to go, and we'll start doing some grinding.
Let's do it.
This has a little nipple on it right there where the jet starts cutting, goes all the way around, and then comes out and goes to the next one. So I grind that off of there. Yeah.
That was quick.
Yep. And then I'll swap out my belt here. I'll do a little clean up. This has got some sharp edges on a couple of things. Yeah, this has got a couple of sharp edges on it on these here. I'll clean that up with a Scotch-Brite belt. And I'm going to clean up the spine here. Go ahead and get that flattened out just a bit.
Okay.
And then I'll clean this up real quick.
So what got you into knife making and your first knife?
I had a couple of knives made, and just the idea of being able to manufacture, just like make your own knife, was just so exciting to me. I was like, I have to figure out how to do this. So I spent about a year just trying to figure out how to make knives. I followed a couple of Facebook groups, started looking online and just delving information about how to make a knife. And it took me about a year before I finally decided I was ready and just jumped in and made my first knife. Yeah.
When was this?
I made my first knife in October 2014.
11 years.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is start working on some grinds. I'll actually put some die chem on here, and we'll mark the center of this so that as I grind, I can grind both sides to the center. And I made a little jig. I can add lines here for my grind lines so I know how high to go. It kind of just makes the process go a little smoother. My fancy little handmade jig.
Secrets of the trade.
And this just allows them to be consistent as long as I can grind to the line. That's one of the things, you know, not every knife is exactly the same. I mean, they are still, even the production knives are hands-on process for sure.
So can you explain what is a production knife versus any other knife?
Well, this one I would say, I don't want to say cut corners, but this one I have shaved off some of the time by, you know, taking some shortcuts. Instead of doing a layout for every single one of these, to line up the holes, to drill every hole, to grind every one of them out by hand, it just takes more time, and therefore they cost more. With the production knife, it just allows me to kind of streamline some of the processes so that I can get through them faster. That way I can offer them up at a better rate. All right, so I'm gonna mark this. Of course, they're gonna come
At this time, right.
Well, when Jason Momoa was here, my neighbor was mowing his yard, and he was like, hey, can you ask them to hold up for a bit?
Yeah.
So I asked my neighbor to hold on. He was cool with it. He stopped, he waited.
Yeah.
And then he kept telling me, he was like, well, let me know when you're on TV. I want to see it. And then I was never on TV.
Of course. What was this purpose again? What are we doing here?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the center of this so that we can grind in from each side. And that way you get the blade centered, you know, because it's easy to like grind too much off of one side or grind, you know what I mean? So.
But what does the blue dye do?
Well, it allows me to see the line. I'm going to mark this.
Got it.
You see, I'll put this and I'll twist it. And it's got a little scribe in the middle, and it'll leave me a line right down the center. And that marks the center of it. And then we get to grinding. I usually start this out with a kind of a worn out belt. What I'm going to do is grind this hard edge, this corner off of here. And that's pretty hard on the belt, so I'll use an order belt and get those knocked off of there. So a lot of guys use a jig, and I actually have one, and I use it for like the swedge on my Huckleberry model. Really weird, because using a jig you would think would be easier and more, but once you learn how to freehand, you know, using the jig is actually more work. One of the other fun things about freehand grinding is that obviously when you start, you know, you're better. I'm right-handed, so I'm better right-handed than I was left-handed.
Right.
Well, then I did it so much that I got to a point where I got better at it with my left than my right. I don't even know how to explain. I don't even know how to explain how that works, but I did. I got to a point where I was better at it left-handed. So one of the things I do is I keep dipping it in the water here to keep the blade cool. This one's already heat treated, so we can't go above the tempering temperature. See, we're working our way down and getting closer to that center line there. You'll notice the sparks. One of the things about carbon steel is you'll notice it has, the sparks have little pieces that come off and then they split. It's like fireworks. One of the interesting things about making knives is, remember when I started, and you know, you work on something and you get to a point where one of the hardest things to do is to figure out what's next. Like what's the next step in the process, you know, trying not to do steps that you're going to do work that you're going to have to go back later and do. I know people that do hand sand the spine completely all the way, and then they glue a handle on, and then they grind the handle and go flush with the tangle and put scratches back in it, and then they have to re-sand it. And so I tried to get to a point where I don't redo processes. But it's interesting when you get to a point where you just kind of, you know, eventually you just learn, you just know what to do next.
Like writing.
Yeah,
I guess. You make all the mistakes when you first start. Have you tried to make knives based on specific foreign cultures?
I've done a couple of knives that were like Viking style knives. They were like a Nordic style knife. They had a what's called a bow tie style handle, bow tie shaped handle that I did with stacked leather. That was a lot of fun. But one of the knives I did make, Ed Fowler is a famous knife maker, and every knife he makes has a sheep horn handle. He raises his own sheep. He has a ranch on the Wind River in Wyoming that I've been to. A guy asked me to make a knife, and I actually got a hold of my buddy Keen and I actually got sheep horn from Ed's Ranch to use for so that was a really cool one. So after going through all the grits from 24 to at this point 400, and then the knife maker's secret weapon, the Scotch-Brite belts, finish those up like that, and we'll work on making a handle for this guy. African Blackwood here, and
Perfect timing. Perfect timing.
They got all our driveways done.
Oh, okay.
They're gonna grind up the street and replace our street here next. And mine was broke and cracked up more than the neighbors across the street. They came through and they started and they cut everything, and then I was like, man, the hell with that. I grabbed a can of white spray paint and went out and marked my driveway like they did all the other ones.
You hacked it.
They by and they were like looking at it like,
I guess we missed it.
And he asked me about it, and he was like, well, when we started this job, yours wasn't out. I was like, oh, I'm glad you guys decided to do it.
Right.
He just looked at me and smiled. I'm like, I'm not admitting this shit.
Right. What is this wood?
This is African Blackwood. It's like ebony. I'm gonna cut this down. I get this from Woodcraft over off of Grapevine Highway. Okay. But this is literally African Blackwood. It's from Africa.
And why is this specific wood good for knife handles?
Well, this one is a very dense, hard wood. It lasts a long time. It's good stuff. What I'm gonna do is get this set up, and I'll cut these, cut me a couple of scales, and we'll get them shaped up.
You definitely have craftsman's hand.
Right.
You got some nice cuts.
Yeah, oh yeah. I love it when people ask me, you ever cut yourself? Like,
yeah.
Like my finger's cracked on the side. That's just from drying out.
Right. Really, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's neat stuff.
I love the
grain
color
of it. You know, it'll oxidize some and look darker. So imagine this piece should be long enough to do both sides. Yeah, good deal. Cut this guy in half. We'll go over to the drill press and get this guy set up.
What do you think? Knives and man, with this connection that we have with knives, which I assume probably started from the Bronze Age when we first made a metal, or even before that, caveman, when they had bones, and I'm sure they made axes and flint, right? Yep. What do you think this connection is that calls us to that?
I don't know what it is, but I know that Bob Lovelace has a quote where he talks about it's an atavistic experience. It takes man back to the cave, you know, and I don't know what it is about it that does that, but it's one of the things I enjoy. I love going to shows. Guys will come into my booth and they're like, oh man, I love knives. I love knives. And like, yeah, me too. You know? So yeah, this is a jig I made to, again, make this process go a little bit quicker when I'm doing production work. Part of the reason I have multiple drill presses is just so I don't have to change drill bits.
All right.
All right, well, what I'll do is pre-shape this and get it close, and then we'll do some bevels on the front.
So tell me about some of your customers. Any that stand out, any interesting stories, celebrities?
Well, you know, one of the things I always say is that I'm not necessarily just making knives, I'm building relationships. I mean, that's one of the things, you know, that really was a big part of this was just, you know, the opportunity to make something for somebody and meet them. Yeah, to me, every customer is special, you know, like I call him a buddy, but you know, there's a guy in Canada that I've actually made several knives for, and he and I talk. I've made knives for him for the last several years. He and I still talk all the time. We've never met face to face, but he appreciates what I do. I've made knives for Jason Momoa. He's got a few of my knives.
Jason Momoa's story again. So he came here to record?
He did. He actually came here to record. We filmed for the On the Roam TV show, but I've made him a few knives. But at that point, I was making him a vest, one of my leather vests. So today he called me and told me my part had got cut. He was like, "What? First 5 minutes of the second Aquaman movie, I'm wearing your vest." But occasionally I get to do cool stuff, like I just made a knife for a guy in Tennessee where we incorporated the ashes from his father. It's definitely an honor to be able to do something like that for somebody, you know? That's one of the fun things too, is just looking at the grain pattern when you look at them side by side like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flatten these guys out, and then we'll work on some bevels on the front. One of the things when you put a knife handle on a knife, I'll have the handle finished, or the front of the handle finished, and I'll have the flats of the knife finished, so when I glue together, the flat and the front of the knife is done. Because if you don't, you can't sand the front of the handle without messing up the blade, and you can't sand the blade without messing up the front of the handle. That's one of the steps. We try to get that done beforehand. And it's fun because it's actually a pet peeve of mine where I see knife makers glue a handle on and they'll just leave the front of the handle just flat.
So this is epoxy?
Yep.
So does this act like a glue or does it act like a polisher?
Yeah, this is a glue. Okay. Yeah, and it's a misconception that the glue holds the handle on. Theoretically, what happens is the glue keeps the handle to the tang so that moisture can't get between the handle and the tang. The pins that I put in, and you'll see at a certain point I'll peen the pins, and that's your mechanical hold. That's what actually holds the handle on. So the glue just keeps moisture from getting behind it.
And then how long do you let it sit?
These usually sit overnight. Now this one has, the pins have been peened with a ball peen hammer to swell them, and then I ground them off, profiled around the edge. So some knives, the handles are shaped by a machine, like CNC shaped, and they're sanded, and then they're just glued on. Mine actually have what I call a wasp waist, so the handle will be thinner in the middle.
What do you ride right now?
Jolene is a 95 soft tail, an 80-inch Evo. It does have an EV27 cam added to it. Other than that, it's pretty stock as far as the motor. The bike is obviously heavily modified. I love riding it. I remember one time it broke down and a buddy let me borrow his bike and I never rode it. I didn't even ride it. I was just like, nope, that's not mine. Well, I have, right now it has a 96 motor in it, and then I have a 95 and a 97 motor over there.
How long you been riding?
So, I mean, I've been riding my whole life. Had, you know, three-wheelers and dirt bikes. And then when I was 12, I got a Harley for Christmas.
At 12?
At 12. It was a 125
things were
single
different
cylinder.
back then. Yeah.
It was a street legal bike. It was, but I just rode it around the yard. We had a railroad right away. It went through my backyard, and when they tore the train tracks out, we had basically our own road to ride motorcycles and mini bikes, go-karts and stuff on. Sophomore year of high school, I was already done with. I'd already taken all of the shop classes.
A lot of that has disappeared, though. The appreciation for handmade, craftsmanship.
I ended up working some different jobs here and there, and then eventually, after I moved to Texas around '92 or '3, I started tattooing. But even then, I was, I play in a band, and I was still making flyers, doing some sort of artwork, making stuff.
What were you playing in the band?
I play in a band called FDW right now. I play bass in this band. I played guitar for about 40 plus years, but 14 years ago, my buddies were like, hey, you should go over and hang out with John. He's over there jamming, and I was like, I don't even have any musical equipment anymore. I've been out of the band scene for a little while, and they were like, he's got a bass. Just go over there and you can probably play that bass. And I've never left. Still playing bass for FDW. So.
Wow. What do you guys play, rock?
Well, it's more like, what's funny is it's like stoner rock, doom, kind of desert rock, kind of that kind of whole thing. But I'm 56 years old, so we're all from the 80s. We're all,
me too.
My guitar player is also born in 69, and our drummer is just a couple years younger than us. We're all kind of Heshers, It's this stoner rock, but it's got kind of an 80s Hesher metalhead.
Yeah, we're the same age, man. I'm 56. Grew up on the Zeppelin, the Van Halen, the Scorpions, and, Deep Purple, and all that stuff that my kid looks at and says, what the hell is all that garbage?
Well, what's funny is I listen to a lot of music out here. One of the things I really listen to a lot is like a lot of 80s rock. I listen to a lot of 70s, classic rock stuff. I listen to a lot of Free. I listen to a lot of April Wine.
Oh, yeah. Those guys are from Montreal, man, my hometown.
Yeah. No kidding. On Fridays, I listen to Eazy-E on Pandora. So it's all Biggie Smalls and Snoop Dogg and Dre.
Getting a little postmodern there.
Just kind of breaks up the week and makes Friday a little more exciting.
After the 80s, I got into alternative.
Yeah, right
so
on.
I got into the Cure and the Smiths.
Oh, yeah, nice. My buddy wanted me to go, and I was just like, man, I just don't think I want to go see Zakk Wylde play. Pantera. I mean,
What's been like the most expensive knife that you've ever been commissioned to make or you made for yourself?
I think my Huckleberry is probably my most expensive knife just because of the amount of work that goes into one. But I have done a couple of collaboration knives that went to collectors that were rather expensive. One of your questions was, have you ever made a knife that you just couldn't get rid of? And I have. I actually made a knife sometime. As soon as I got done with it, I was just like, this is my knife forever. I'll never get rid of it. I made my first Huckleberry in 2019, and that's the one with the lugged guard and stock leather handle. This is my favorite knife ever. I made this one, and I haven't not carried one since I made the first one, so... This one was one that I finished. This is for some reason, just the way the handle came out, the shape of it. As soon as I got done with it, I was just like, this is my knife. I made it to sell. I didn't have a customer for it. I just made it and was just going to put it up for sale, and I had to keep it.
What's the legality of carrying a knife?
In Texas, you can carry any knife you want.
Varies by state.
Like in Iowa, you can't carry a knife longer than 3.5 inches. I mean, you could have a bigger knife for hunting and whatnot, but you can't carry it around town. 2018, they changed the law in Texas and carry a sword in Texas. Like a laser engraver. That you can just zap it with a laser engraver. I know a bunch of guys that are doing that. They also, you can do this with a stamp, but you have to do it when the steel is hot before it's usually during the heat treating process, you know what I mean? You'll heat it up for heat treating, you can do the stamp then. I like to do the electro etch. Actually, one of the interesting things is because it's a stencil, whenever I make a knife for myself, I put the stencil backwards to denote that I literally made this knife for myself.
Right.
I do it for 3 seconds at a time, 3 times.
What's in there?
Well, that's ferric chloride. Do you remember when you made electronics, when you did something with electronics, do you remember making your own circuit boards?
Etching, yeah.
Ferric chloride is what you use to etch the copper off of a circuit board. So you put a resist where you want the circuits to stay, and you would put it in ferric chloride. Wow. That's exactly what that is. And what's funny is I put the whole knife in there, so there's brass pins in it. There's copper in the pins. There's copper and brass. So this same juice I've been using for like 10 years. So it has a bunch of copper in it, dissolved into it. So it almost anodizes. There's no electricity going through it, but it almost anodizes it. It adds a copper look to it. It doesn't take very long. Put it in there and you can see it's already, then it goes from being shiny to looking much older.
Chlorine?
Ammonia.
Ammonia.
Ammonia stops the chemical process of the etching. And then I always add baking soda just to make sure. My goal is to make knives that look like they were found in a barn, like they'd been there 100 years. And the etching them with ferric chloride definitely does that. It makes them look old. And especially with the production knives. I usually don't clean them up as nice, you know, let them look a little rougher, a little dirty. And then also I number everyone, and I'll do that at a later point, but the last step is to sharpen it. This is probably a, I don't know, 9-ounce piece of leather. Wow. You see it just goes through that like nothing. It's been sitting outside too long, it absorbs moisture.
Thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the process of watching how these beautiful handcrafted knives were made by Nick Huff. Please like, follow, share, and check out Nick's website where you can actually buy these beauties, knivesmadeby Nick.com. Follow him on his socials, and I will catch you on the next video. See ya.